What's going on, YouTube family? Today we're going to be talking about how negative equity is affecting buying and selling new and used vehicles. And stay tuned for this. You're going to be shocked at some of the results we go over. Now, at the end of 2023, I kept saying the biggest term you're going to hear over and over again for the next 18 months is negative equity. It's going to be an absolute deal killer. People laughed, said there's no way, and now we're finally here. So first I'm going to talk about what is negative equity, how is it currently affecting the market, how the auto loan crisis is playing a role into it, and how the pandemic even exacerbated this even further. So we're going to start from day one of buying and financing a car. Let's just say you graduated from college, you're ready to start your life, but you want to buy yourself a new car. Now, we're going to be looking at cheap, affordable economy cars. Now, most people, it's very easy to do a story about negative equity if they're buying a Mercedes, BMW, luxury SUV, or sports car, but we're going to talk about something practical just to really hit the point home. So you find this beautiful smart car that you can buy that's very affordable for $15,000. So typically what happens is I tell people you want to put 20 to 30% down. You want to finance it for single digit interest. And on top of that, you don't want to finance it any more than 60 months if it's a brand new car. This way, more of the principal pays down your loan. This is a great thing to do. This is what helps you avoid negative equity. But in the world today, nobody wants to put money down. There's so many programs, no money down, easy payments, 84 months, you can finance for eternity. And that's how they get you. So let's just say that this car is worth, like I said, $15,000. So if they were to put $5,000 down, they'd only finance this. But they decided, you know what, if I don't have to put, the full amount of money down, I won't. I'll finance the full $15,000 and I'll kick the can down the road. So let's just say that they decided to go from 60 months to 84 months. Now they're paying probably a little bit less in payments, but more of the money is actually going towards interest instead of the actual principal of the vehicle. So now we just keep driving along. You meet a nice girl, you get married, you decide, you know what, we need to get a bigger car, bigger SUV. Let's get something, newer. And then here comes the G-Wagon. Your wife sees it, loves it. This is the car we want to buy. How do we get from this smart car to this? Well, you've been paying it down, so you've made payments and everything else. And so what happens is the dealer says, you know what, we're going to give you $10,000 for this car because that's what we think is worth, and that's going to be your trade-in value for this car. But what about all this money left over that you still owe on that smart car? That is your negative equity. This means that you owe more on the car than what it's actually worth. So a lot of times what banks would force you to do, or dealers, you have to pay this money to get into the new car. But unfortunately, in the last 10 years, banks have done something they haven't done before. They said, you know what, we're going to bump up the LTV, which is loan to value. So instead of you having to pay this car off, we're not going to give you $10,000 for your $10,000 smart car. We're going to give you $14,000 for your $10,000 smart car. And we're just going to add that negative equity onto this new car. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal is because guess what happens 2 years from now when this family wants to get another car? Because Americans love to buy new cars even though they can't afford them. And so they're like, you know what, this is a beautiful G-Wagon, it's great, but we want something even nicer. Maybe we want to get, a G-Wagon with 8 wheels instead of just 6. So they decide to upgrade. Well, guess what happens? The next car they purchase, they're going to be upside down because they probably paid full retail for this car. They don't want to put any money down. And plus they have the negative equity from the first car, and it just keeps getting snowballed out of control. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal is because one, banks allowed so many American consumers to get away with it for way too long. How does this affect us today in the auto loan crisis? Well, it's because banks now don't want to lend, the extra money, the extra LTV to get you into that car. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if you show back up today with that smart car, trying to buy this car, 9 times out of 10, the dealership's going to tell you, no, you need to put more money down. And what's going to happen? They don't have the money. So the dealer's going to do one of two things. They're either going to make you keep that car and buy this Mercedes, hoping that you get stuck with the smart car, or you give it back to the bank. And that's currently what's going on right now. People don't want to take on the massive amounts of debt. They said, you know what, I want this car, but I don't want to have to pay off this other one because I want to keep my cash in my pocket. So the dealership will sell them that Mercedes, And then these people will also keep the smart car and they'll be buried in both of them now. So this is a typical situation that's been happening for over a decade. But when the actual pandemic happened and cars jumped up, 150 to 200% of their value, it just exacerbated this issue even more. And that's what gets us to the meat and potatoes of this story, are all the people that bought in the last 3 years are so upside down in their cars, there's absolutely no way to trade them in. And what does this mean for dealers and bankers and people like yourselves? When the money slows down, cars are not moving, it hurts everybody negatively. So if dealers can't sell cars, they can't hire more people, they can't buy your cars, banks are not getting the money because they're stuck in loans to cars that they're not really worth it. And so it slows everything down a lot. Now, here's the problem. Something has to give. Either the customers have to give the cars back to the banks, the dealers have to overpay for trade-ins, or the bank has to raise the financing limits for you to get that. But we already know dealers are not going to lower prices or pay you more. We already know that banks basically said they don't want to finance any more cars for over their LTV value because they're losing millions of dollars every single month. And pretty much customers, they don't want to stay in the same car. Americans want to get new cars every 2 to 3 years. Why drive something that's old? They want to drive something brand new. And that's what brings us to our dilemma. We have so many people that are trying to trade in these crazy cars. Like the first one is a Hummer. I just got sent this short reel. I'll see if I could share it here. Somebody financed a Hummer when they first came out. Now these things were selling for over $200,000, 100 grand over MSRP. So imagine if you bought that during the hype for $200,000 and you put maybe $5,000, $10,000 down, plus sales tax, plus doc fees, plus, you're financing maybe $190. You're paying on it for a year to 2 years, thinking everything is fine, and now you're ready to get something else. Car's got 10,000 miles, so you're like, you know what? I want to get into something, maybe a new Corvette. You go to the dealership, you go to trade it in, and you owe 170, and they tell you, you know what? We're going to give you $75,000 for this car because that's what it's worth. But you're like, but I owe $170,000. So I'm $100,000 upside down in my EV, and that is correct. And it absolutely blows my mind. Every single week, I hear more and more stories of people doing this. One of my favorite ones, this one's a local one, it's from Las Vegas. This guy's all over the news. He's on a bunch of blogs. He was one of those idiots that was fighting over the new Hyundai Palisade. I think they're great cars. They look good. I think the one he was buying was somewhere around $47,000. But he didn't pay $47,000. He paid $40,000 over MSRP for a Hyundai Palisade. So he almost paid double the amount of what the car actually sold for brand new. So guess what happens in 2 years when he goes to trade it in? His 2022, that's now worth maybe in the low 30s, $31,000, $32,000. He's stuck. He owes $74,000 on a car that's worth $31,000 to $32,000. What do you think Hyundai told him? They laughed. They told him to go somewhere else. He's trying to sue Hyundai for bad practices. He's trying to do this. All these people are trying to get out of basically the contract that they signed. If they wanted to overpay $40,000 for a Hyundai, that's their fault. If you ask me, and if you're watching this, you're an idiot. You might as well just take it in the shorts and just keep moving, because no matter how much you cry, how much you complain, you're the victim. You're the idiot that decided to buy a $40,000 car for $80,000. And, the sad thing is there's no shortage of stories like this. The biggest one that I've seen so far to date was when one of my dealer friends got a trade-in for a Rolls-Royce Cullinan. This is a very nice SUV. At the time, they were extremely desirable. Everybody wanted them, and they were paying up to $300,000 over MSRP. And these are not cheap SUVs by no means. So this gentleman paid, I think it was $250,000 to $300,000 over MSRP for this Rolls Royce. On top of that, the guy put $250,000 down. Goes to trade it in 2 years later. I think he was offered somewhere around $250,000, but he still owes $580,000 on the vehicle. I'll let you do the math. Imagine being hundreds of thousands of dollars upside down and a luxury SUV you cannot get out of. This is what the issues are. Dealers and banks basically rob themselves out of sales for the next 2 to 3 years. Because as a dealer, I rely on you, the customer, to come back every 2 to 3 years to buy a new car. This is why it's so important to build a relationship with your customer, because if they're telling you, they're about a year out, you start making notes, okay, in about 3 months, I'm going to check with them, see what they're looking for. Maybe I go buy it at the auction, and when they come in, I trade in their new car, sell them another one. That's just part of doing business. But now, that's why dealers are not selling as many cars as what they used to. Banks are tighter, cars are overpriced, and they can't take any customers because they're so upside down in their cars. Dealers can't eat thousands of dollars of negative equity. So they basically rob future sales from themselves. I don't think the market is going to normal until 2027. Now, prices are going to come down like we talked about. And you can see if you want to go to MMR or you want to go to Manheim or even Kelley Blue Book, you can watch the little graph. It's showing the used car index going down every single month. But that still doesn't explain why car sales are not up and why they're slowly going down, because people can't afford them. And all the people that bought 2 years ago are just absolutely screwed. Another crazy one is all these people that bought these C8 Corvettes. Now, I absolutely love the C8. I think it's a beautiful car, but too many idiots were drinking the Kool-Aid. I knew this was going to happen when they came out, and there was a bunch of dealers charging 25 grand over MSRP. People were eating them up. And then once they hit the secondhand market, people were trying to resell them for another $20,000 on top of that. So you had, a Corvette that was worth maybe, let's say, $68,000 that people were trying to sell for like $100,000 to maybe a $120,000, $120,000. It's ridiculous. And they were getting away with it, and banks were financing it. And now the music's done. Whatever you basically left with, that's what you're left with. And so you're going to see this basically issue get worse every single month. And the reason why it's going to affect you, the consumer, even if you were smart and you decided to hold on to your money and not buy anything and not overpay, is because now when you go shopping for a car, when you try to buy something, the dealer's not going to want to negotiate because they've lost so much money. And then when you go to your lender to get a loan, you're going to get a really bad rate or really bad buy fee because they've lost millions of dollars on the deficiencies that they have to raise your, very good credit score up 2-3 points because they have to cover the losses they took from these other idiots. And this is how I tell everybody, this is the system. This is a complete circle. No matter what the idiots do at the bottom, it affects the people on the top, and whatever people do at the top affect the people on the bottom. And this is why everything is connected when it comes to the auto industry. So the more we make fun of these people of overpaying, at the end of the day, it's going to be the people that are actually still making their car payments on time are the ones that are going to be paying for it. So my advice, if you can't put that big down payment down, don't do it. And don't be surprised if a lot of deals get turned down because banks are going to require you to do that. They're going to cut out that 84-month financing. They're probably going to hit you with 72 to maybe 60-month financing. I've seen some banks on used cars go no more than 54 months or 48 months. They're starting to wean this stuff back because they got to get their books back to normal. And even though the rate reduction has gone down and everyone's making, a big deal about it, trust me, you're not going to see much movement in the auto industry. Everything's going to stay the same. Not very many people are going to finance. And that's the other thing. A lot of people say, well, I'm paying 15% interest. I'm going to refinance it when my rates get better. If you owe more than what the car is worth, the bank will not finance it. So if you got a $50,000 car at 12% interest and now rates are at 3%, if that car is worth on book $30,000 and you owe $50,000, you cannot refinance it. You're stuck paying that high interest until you pay enough down to actually get to the book amount. Then the bank will refinance it. That's what I'm saying. Like all the things that have happened basically have been screwed people for the next 5 years. So, hopefully take this in heed. Don't be super excited to just buy a car, sign your name on the contract. I know it's exciting to buy a new car. Don't believe in the hype. Just be patient. Buy a good car, big down payment, and if you can, buy a cheap car. I'm driving around my funny little smart car, my Mario Kart, if you guys see me in Vegas. I'm waiting because I know there's all kinds of deals here coming up. Anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please chime in the comment section below if you knew all this stuff and how everything was connected. What is your opinion of currently what's going on? Do you have a lot of friends that are upside down in their cars? Do you know people that have paid, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over MSRP for a car? Make sure you send them this video, and we'll see you guys next time.